What's up? I'm Ayla.
Hi, I'm Beth Ann.
And this is Let's Talk BL, a boys love podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. It's Sunday, Series Sunday, the day a week where we talk all about one series and one series only, chock full of spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go watch the series or listen to us.
Or be spoiled and then decide you want to watch the series.
Yeah, which I think happens a lot in BLs actually.
Right.
I feel like people are like, cool.
I feel like this one in particular, everyone was so crazy for it.
Yeah.
That I knew the plot before I watched it.
I actually didn't.
Oh.
Yeah. I'd heard a lot about it, but I heard no specifics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like I knew everything. Just same thing. I know basically everything about The Untamed. I have only watched one episode of The Untamed.
Interesting.
It's just a really daunting show. I'm like, oh, that's so many episodes. I'm scared to start it because it's
you
so
had
much.
said that you heard a lot about it on Twitter, and I did not.
I read a lot about that one on Twitter before I even got into BLs.
Yeah.
Which is how I knew it was like popular and it was
thing.
like a thing. And the same thing goes for this one. So today we're talking about My Love Mix-Up, Kieta Hatsukoi.
Nice.
Don't come for me.
I
don't know.
We're going Japanese.
I do what I can. But the same thing. I feel like I heard so much about this show in terms of people talking about it.
How much they loved it.
I didn't see a ton of usually you'll see clips on TikTok and that's what spoils you.
Yeah.
I didn't see a ton of that for this.
I didn't either.
But so much discussion. And so we actually are doing this show today because if you remember, skip back all the way to episode 1 of season 2, we ran a giveaway, surprise giveaway. And the only requirement was to suggest Series Sunday shows for us. And this was actually a Series Sunday suggestion, which I was excited about because I wanted to watch the show. There was just a lot happening.
It came out on another platform and then only went to Viki in January, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember there being a lot happening and I just had never got to it originally. But so when we random drew for the giveaway winner, it happened to be this suggestion and I was like, oh my God.
Love it.
So Annie, who suggested this, who is the winner of the giveaway, check your DMs if you haven't replied to us yet. Because we want to send you that Too Cute to Be Cool shirt. So My Love Mix-Up, Kieta Hatsukoi.
Okay, it came out in 2021, I think end of 2021. It's 10 episodes. It's on Viki. Bless. It stars. You ready for this?
I'm so ready for this.
Michida Sunsuke as Aoki Sota and Meguro Ren as Aida. Right? Is that how they say it in the show?
Yeah, Aida Kosuke.
Because it's confusing because the other boy is Aida?
Aida, yeah.
Aida. Okay, anyway.
Aida and Aida. It's a lot.
Aida Kosuke, which they say his first and last name a couple times in this show. And that's
Japanese shows tend to do that.
That's confusing too.
Yeah.
I haven't
If anyone knows, so I actually we need to do a Japanese culture episode. I'm just realizing this because I'm wondering if it's because we of course know we're familiar enough with Korean culture that we understand the way that naming conventions when you speak to someone.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe it's a cultural thing that if you're really close with someone, you say their first name, and if you're not so close, you say their last name, or other way around.
In Taiwan, how they say their full name always.
Always. Right.
And what's confusing is that Viki, because it's a US company, fun fact, they will write out first name first, last name last.
Right.
Which is very
confusing.
Okay, so then we have Fukumoto Riko as Hashimoto Mio.
I love Hashimoto.
Yeah.
I think she's so cute.
She's great.
I love her.
She's great as that girl character.
She's just great, period.
Okay, go for the synopsis.
Okay, synopsis time. My presenter voice.
Yes.
For longer than he'd care to admit, Sota Aoki has had a crush on his classmate Mio Hashimoto. Sitting next to her in class every day, Aoki wishes he could find a way to tell her how he feels, but something keeps holding him back. Despite being unable to confess his feelings, he's at least able to talk to her about other, simpler things.
So cute.
He's even occasionally borrowed school supplies from her, which is why he didn't think twice about asking to borrow an eraser from her when he found himself needing one during class one day.
Adorable.
I really like this synopsis because it basically, like, it gives you all the background info you need for the very first scene, which is
Yeah.
him going, "Lend me your eraser."
Yeah.
Which if you're a fan of, like, Vicky Subbers, I don't know how many people know this, but so Vicky Subbers are all, like, it's a volunteer basis
Yeah.
thing. And essentially all the shows are fan subs. So they all have, like, little teams.
Yeah.
And the fans, like, the fan team gets to come up with their name. And
It's
on Vicky, it's
my favorite
the
part.
Lend Me Your Eraser team, which I think is very cute and I love.
It's so
And I
cute.
love the way the eraser kind of, like, comes back all the time.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's explain for those who might not know what the whole, like, eraser thing is, because this was something that was introduced to me in, I think, a Korean drama, actually. But it's specific to Japan, right? It came out of Japan, I think. It's like a thing that they do where they write their crush's name on an eraser, and by the time you, like, get through the eraser, they've, like, fallen in love with you, or
Right.
you hope that they have.
That, I mean, it's supposed to be a charm. So I actually was introduced to this in Sodus.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so Sodus is what introduced this, like, eraser thing to me because, and fun fact, like, I learned my first few, like, Thai characters, right? Like, knowing which letter made which sound.
Oh, yeah. You told me
Because
this. Yeah.
yes, I think I told William this too.
Yeah.
Because she has a crush on Kong Pop.
Right.
And so you see his name written out so many times and it's character by character.
Yeah.
And so that's actually how I learned the character for the K sound in Thai. So I actually was introduced to this in Sodus, which is like a Thai drama.
That's so
but
funny.
I think it does come from Japan
Yeah.
originally. And it's supposed to be like a love charm in the same way that, you know, like in American schools, we play the, what is this game? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes,
it's called a fortune teller.
The little fortune teller. So if you're not from the United States of America, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I don't know how, like, culturally far spread this is, but we do this thing where you get a sheet of paper and it has to be a square and you fold it into smaller squares and it makes a triangle shape and you can fit it on your 2 pointer fingers and your 2 thumbs and you label it with numbers.
Yeah.
And then you put colors as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, the person that you're playing, and then on the inside, and then you can fold the flap up and you get your answer.
Right.
And so the person you're playing it with, you tell them to pick a number and you do one. Let's say they pick 4. You 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the inside, there's colors and they pick a color.
Yeah.
And then you flip up that color and it has the answer to whatever, like.
Right.
Right. And so I think this eraser situation is similar to that kind of, like, game.
Yeah.
Or like MASH, right? We play a lot of MASH. I don't know, again, how culturally widespread that is.
It's just these,
but
like,
I think it's like
these,
a schoolyard games.
There's also, like, the bracelet, the braided bracelet that you wear. You make a wish and you wear it, and when it falls off, like, the wish will come true.
Right.
There's, like, all those little, like, fun things. This eraser thing is, like, the cutest thing, and truly the best idea for a BL plot line. It was so fluffy. What was the show that we talked about last season that was, like, fluffier than fluff?
Oh, so I like to say Sugar Coated Sugar.
Yeah, what was
and there were 2 shows. The first one was The Best Story.
Oh, yeah.
The Best Story is just Sugar Coated Sugar. It is cotton candy.
Yeah.
And then the other one's Light on Me. Light on Me is very much like Sugar Coated Sugar.
In that category, because every response that we got about us watching the show, because I storied that we were watching it, was literally people being like, I just love that show. Like, it was just, like, sweet and wholesome. Like, they hold hands.
You
like,
never want to cry.
It's like you feel comforted. Although I will say you do want to, like, scream at the TV when a homophobic teacher who was the love interest from Life Love on the Line.
I was horrified. So let's jump into this plot point because there's a lot to talk about. We can talk about the other plot points that are very sweet, but since you brought it up.
Yeah.
This was horrifying to me.
Yeah.
We were sitting there watching it together and I was like, what are we? And I kept expecting it to be better, for there to be a twist.
There was no redemption.
For some sort of redemption. But him literally, first of all, he's like, I can't be your teacher anymore.
First of all, he creepily is snooping on his love life. Like, that's the whole setup.
He sees them out in public.
When they first start being tutored, when he starts tutoring him,
right,
the teacher is like, I forget why they started this conversation, but he was like, oh, you have a crush, or like you have someone you're dating. And then he's like, oh, tell me about them. And he, like, starts to explain it. And then he's like, oh, have you guys done anything? And he's like, no, we've just held hands. And like that, like he's creepily pushing. He's like, what do the high schoolers do these days? And you're like, why do you need to know this information? You're just tutoring him. Like that sets you up for like weird. And then yes, and then he runs into them like out in public, but like already he's been a little too like personable, which when he says like you've known me from the first day, like I've been that same person that you've gotten to know, like that all that information he got from him, like just because it's about a boy, make it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, so the setup for that, actually, I do remember the setup for that, which it was, he basically said, he was like, wow, how did you get so good and raise your grades? Because, right, he's trying, the reason he's tutoring is he wants to raise his grades to get into this university. Right. And he's so excited about this tutor because the tutor kind of is in the same position as he was when he was in school. He studied really hard and raised his grades and did all this stuff. Yeah. And so on that first tutoring session, he's like, you know, how did you do it? I really want to be like you. And he says, oh, well, my girlfriend at the time was in basically the gifted and talented program. I think they sub it as like a STEM. I think they say STEM program, which I was very amused by. I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah. But essentially it boils down to like gifted and talented program. And he was like, and I wasn't, and I wanted to be there. And that's when Aoki says, I'm in the same position. Right. And he's like, yeah. And then he starts talking about like that, you know, his love interest is also in this like gifted and talented track and whatever. And so that's the setup for that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I do love kind of how Aida?
Yeah.
Sure. Comes in when they're like going to eat ramen. Sweet Aoki is like, I want to eat ramen with my teacher. And he comes in and they've like established that he's like the earth's worst and like homophobic. And he's like, let's go have ramen together. Like eating.
Oh, Ida shows up, not Aida. Ida shows up.
Yeah.
Ida. So, okay. Yeah. So Ida, not Aida. Very confusing.
One letter off. It's gonna be very dry.
Well, they're two very different characters.
Yeah. Totally.
No, yeah. So, like, honestly, that scene right before Ida shows up, again, I kept expecting it to get better, and even before then. So when after he sees them on the bridge holding hands, which by the way is like the sweetest scene because let's rewind and talk about that scene.
His hand being cold,
right? Because they've been eating lunch together. They've been eating lunch together.
Okay, so there's another part of that, like when they're talking on the steps, you find out that that Ida is part of the public morals committee.
Ida.
Sorry, I'm never gonna get this name right. Ida is part of the public morals committee. I wrote this down when I was watching it, and I was like, the public morals committee, like nothing could be more Japanese school. I feel like we would never have that. It feels like very Harry Potter, right?
Where he does like, make a comment about it where he's like, oh, aren't you gonna, where Aoki says to him about some couple, I think it's the other couple that eats lunch up there, and they have like breakfast together and have like tea and stuff like that. Yeah. He does like ask him like, aren't you gonna say anything to them? And he's like, no, it seems like it was consensual. Which I think is funny.
Yeah. Anyways, continue.
So they've been eating lunch together,
so cute.
And they can't eat lunch on the rooftop this one day because the very cute other couple is up there like having their lunch together.
Yes.
And
is rooftops a BL trope now across all
it must be
countries? Because in Light on Me, they also talk on a balcony. Maybe it's more of a balcony.
It is, yeah.
But like it's a rooftop because somebody's down below.
You can see the down.
We'll go
you can see the down below. And so they can't eat lunch on this rooftop, and so they're eating lunch on the stairs together. And Aoki is like feeling these feelings. He's like having these stirrings in the most pure way possible. Yeah. In this way that's like honestly so relatable. That's like it's very nostalgic, I feel like, for anyone that watches this to be like, oh, I remember that. Because so honestly, those feelings fade eventually. I think that like in relationships and dating, you never really get over the nerves and like the first kiss and the first hug and the first handhold. But there's a very unique feeling that comes along with being in high school, and it's like your first boyfriend, and it's like, and you're trying to figure out, like, even though we're dating, which in American culture, like, even though we're going steady, right? Like, you've made this agreement in the lunchroom, which is essentially what happens here, that you're dating now, that you're boyfriend, girlfriend now.
Right.
And you're trying to figure out, like, does he actually like me? Like, are we actually gonna, And so it's like, it's so nostalgic to watch, but he's like trying to decide, like, how he can, like, just touch his hand, right?
Yeah.
And so he, like, reaches over and kind of touches his hand, and Ida pulls back.
Yeah.
And Ida pulls back, and of course Aoki, like, freaks out, as we all would.
Yeah.
Like, in that moment, I was like,
yeah.
And so that's what leads to this bridge scene where homophobic teacher finds them. And the bridge scene is so sweet because Aoki is, like, really going through it over this hand-holding situation. Like, he has
everything,
which is so relatable.
Yeah.
I relate to this boy on just such a deep level. Like, everything he does, I'm like, me.
Meanwhile, Ida is so earnest, and I'm like, yeah, I get him. He's like, nothing's too deep. And, like, it is what it is.
But so they're on this bridge, and Aoki's going through it because he's like, ever since that day that I touched his hand, he's had his hands in his pockets, and he's been avoiding me, and he's like, I messed it up. And he's just so upset. And it's so, you're just like, oh, baby, right? Like, you're so just like going through it for him.
Right.
And so he finally decides to say something. Ida walks up, and Ida has his hands in his pockets. And Aoki finally decides to say something. He's like, if that's because of that thing that happened that day, like, don't worry, I'm not going to try it again. Like, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And Ida just, like, grabs his hand and puts it in his pocket.
So cute.
And Aoki's like freaking, he's like, what are you doing?
K-drama.
He's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, it's warm. And this is when Ida says to him, like, yeah, the reason I pulled back is because your hand was so cold, which I had, like, big Twilight flashbacks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Like, on a personal level, I had Twilight flashbacks. But it's so sweet because there's this, like, I love monologues. I love a monologue.
Yeah.
And so Ida starts monologuing. I love a boy that can monologue, right? Like, Om Pawat is, like, the king of monologues. Like, I will say this is not an Om Pawat level monologue.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a good one.
Yeah.
And so he starts monologuing, and then my favorite line from this monologue is he says, nothing about you could ever be gross to me. And then he, like, holds out his hand with the little, like, hand warmer, and they hold hands holding the hand warmer. And it is just, I mean, sugar-coated sugar, strawberry scented, like, lip smackers. Like,
which, if you've watched My Beautiful Man, this was truly, like, the solve that you needed, because speaking of gross, like, the boy calls the other boy gross in that show, and, like, this was, like, just a nice,
it was
light,
so
sweet, frilly drama that wasn't, like, surface level. It felt like it had substance, and I was fully into it and loved it and would, like, probably rewatch it again. And yeah, it had everything that you need. The friends in this too, like, we love a good friend group. Every friend in this. So it starts out with the girl that.
Oh, right. We never explained the mix-up.
Yeah. So the girl is Hashimoto, and Aoki has had a crush on her for forever.
Because she gave him a cupcake, which is, like, the most pure reason to have a crush on someone.
That makes sense. And so then she lends him her eraser, which it turns out the eraser is supposed to say AIDA, and she's already erased through the A. So when he drops the eraser and Ida picks it up, he sees his name with the little heart and is like, okay. And I just love that moment, because he's like, it's that moment that I feel like we have a lot of times just watching dramas in general, where it's like, you just wish they would say, I like you. And then that's it. Like, they're like, oh, let me think about that. Like,
well, then he doesn't necessarily like him. And actually, like, this moment.
He's like, let me consider your feelings.
Right. That's what I'm saying. This moment is where you start to get the depth in this drama, which it is, like, cotton candy fluff, like carousel at the carnival kind of drama. But the depth that comes in is, I would say, really in Ida and in Aoki too, even though he's so dramatic and like him just going through it over
But it's
everything.
like comical dramatic. It's not like annoying dramatic ever.
I don't know. I do that and I feel like I annoy people, but I'm sure if you had to live with it day in and day out, it gets annoying. But the thing that I like about Ida, because he's where the depth comes in, because he's really where you get this sort of like the character development. Even though the way that we see it, it's Aoki going through everything and Aoki trying to figure out, it's actually Ida.
Yeah.
Because his friends, because in the beginning, he's like trying to figure out, he's like, does he like me? Did it definitely say that? Like, what's going on? He's confused.
Right.
And then he like apologizes and he's like, I'm sorry, like I can't like you that way. I don't like you that way. And then we see, this is when we see Aoki kind of like protect Hashimoto because he thinks Hashimoto, wouldn't want her feelings getting out there, which like, I don't think any boy would ever lie and pretend to have a crush on another boy for me.
Right?
So like pure.
Yeah.
But with Ida, he kind of is almost like placating Aoki for a while.
Yeah.
And it's because the same problem that you have actually with Cow in Dark Blue Kiss is he's kind of just a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Right? And it does lead to problems, not in as dramatic a fashion as Dark Blue Kiss.
No.
But this is the same type of character. And his friends, even his very sweet friend from the volleyball team, like
Toyota,
has a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And is like, listen, I know y'all are dating. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. He's like, listen, I know. Like, you don't need to like, we're not pretending here.
Yeah.
And he explains to him, he's like, listen, I know who you are and how you are as a person because we're friends. And you need to not break Aoki's heart, because if you are dating him to placate him, and you don't really have these feelings and you're not really serious about him, you need to understand that he is serious about it.
Right.
And like what you're doing is disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's the way it's translated. I'm pretty sure it says the word disrespectful. And so he tells him, he's like, just being a people pleaser in this situation is disrespectful to Aoki. And that's what really kicks Ida off into like actually thinking about the situation.
Right. Because honestly, it's not about him placating Aoki. It's about like him never being in this experience before and him like figuring out like what it means to like a person.
And if he wants to like this person, right. And so he gets, I think, the most character development out of anyone. And there's depth there, and you can see this like character journey, and it's actually really awesome. Yeah. And I like it a lot.
Because when he goes from stoic, I remember saying like when he starts to smile and laugh and be happy, like he's so cute when he smiles. Like it's just such a sweet, like he does have that character development. He like comes out of his shell a little more. He's like more playful and fun because Aoki has kind of inspired that in him, which I think is what like a lot of people, when they talk about a partner, they're like, I want them to challenge me and like bring out the best in me. And that's what I feel like you get from the character development of Ida, is that you get him being this like very stoic, very like straight-faced boy to showing more range of emotion and showing more just like playfulness and fun, which of course gets him in trouble in that part where he's like changing his shirt and he takes off his shirt or he goes to take off his shirt and Aoki's like, no, don't do that. And he's like, oh, I've changed or I've not changed. And he's like, it's when they have that conflict and he's like, oh, you're picking on me and you wouldn't tease someone that you like. Right. And it's funny because like, that's so much of a trope in our culture where you like pick on the kid you like at recess because you like them. Like the person, like that's so ingrained in our culture that like you pick on the person you like.
Which, by the way, is like destructive.
It's so bad.
It's awful. And so I don't subscribe to that.
And so it's so sweet to see in this drama them being like, oh, if I really cared about this person, I actually wouldn't pick on them.
Yeah, I don't know. I related hard to that fight because like in that moment I was watching that and I was like, because in that moment Aoki is being so serious about it and he very much is like trying to be respectful more than anything else, and Ida like teases him and doesn't take him and his feelings, and I think that's the root of that fight, is that Aoki is really hurt that, like, he was trying to be serious about it because that's the kind of person that Ida is. He's on
Right.
the public morals committee,
Right.
you know, for heaven's sake. And so then when Ida doesn't take him seriously, like, I that is hurtful.
Yeah.
Like, that teasing is hurtful.
Right. Okay, so we don't get a beach frolic in this show, but we do get a mountain frolic.
Mountain frolic, which is like almost just as good.
I love it. I love the like trips.
Yeah.
You get a trip and there's always going to be craziness that ensues. I love that this is where like you're not sure if they're dating or not. Like,
this is a very confusing conversation because you and I watched it
confusing.
and we like together.
Yeah.
And we both, by the next episode, we didn't talk about it either.
No.
So,
I was like, they're dating. And you were like, no, they're not dating.
Right. So the next episode we're talking and you're like, no, but they're dating. And I was like, no, they're not dating. And you were like, but they had the conversation on the mountain. And I was like, but he was just talking in hypotheticals. And what's funny about this is this is the same conversation that Aoki and Ida have, because Aoki's like, we're dating.
Yeah.
And Ida's like, but it was hypotheticals.
Yeah. so good. It's so funny because we like had the same exact conversation.
Yeah.
You like talked about it, so you're dating. You're like,
but they're not actually. Anyways, it's the same conflict they have at this volleyball game. Another thing I do like about the mountain frolic before we move on to the volleyball game.
Yeah,
I really like Aoki and Hashimoto and the way and just their whole dynamic, because
like
they
seamless
get paired
transition.
Up. Right, they get paired up on the mountain, and you see them earlier in the show have a conflict when you discover the mix-up, right?
Yeah.
And you think, and Hashimoto finds out, and of course Aoki, in like sweet, pure, good-hearted, like nice boy fashion, says to her like, "Listen, I have to tell you something. Like, I like him."
He says we're the same.
We're the same
because they haven't established like that they like two different boys. They've only established that they like a boy.
Well, and this is when he establishes it, and so like him confessing that to her, I think is really sweet.
And I love
he didn't have to.
I love how before they clear up the mix up, she's like, "We have to be rivals now." Like they're sitting on the swings, and I forget like how they end up establishing that like one of them is Aida and one of them's Ida, because like the one letter is different. But that moment is her. I just love her because she's like clearly being playful and just being like, we have to be love rivals. Like we can't be friends anymore.
But then they're still clearly friends. Like they have just such a sweet dynamic. And I remember how that setup happens is they're swinging on the swings and they're like, isn't he so cool? Isn't he so handsome? Right? They're like naming off all these qualities about the boy that they like, which is a different boy. They don't know. And you as the viewer don't know that yet either.
Right.
Like you as the viewer think it's the same boy.
Yeah.
And so then Aoki pushes her on it. And she's like, you're going to make me say it out loud? Because she like says something that doesn't quite describe Ida.
Yeah.
And so he like asks her and she's like, you're going to make me say it out loud? And he's like, yeah, say it. And they like say it and they say the names and she's like, Ida? And she's like, oh no. And he's like, that's what was on the eraser. And she's like, oh my God, no. She's like, I must have written through the A character. Like I must have erased through the A character. And they have this realization and they get so excited. They're like, we don't like the same boy?
Yeah.
And they get like really it's very cute. But I love their dynamic on the mountain too.
Yeah.
Because like they suck at this mountain food game.
Yeah.
Like they suck at it.
Yeah.
And they're so just like funny together.
Yeah.
And they're just like talking about their crushes on these boys. And it's just such a good friendship.
It's moments like these that really make you hope that like I'm gonna go on this like rainbow and clouds and sunshine, that like one day our society will get to this place where we like don't talk about coming out, right? Where it's like you just are like, I like a boy, I like a girl, and that's just it, you know, like
right, like Hashimoto was just like,
you
like her only problem was that they liked the same boy,
right? Like I think it's the same thing with like the moment in Love, Simon, where they talk through like all the straight characters coming out to their parents. They're like, Mom, Dad, just so you know, I like the opposite sex. Right. It's that moment. And I love these moments in this show because I feel like that happens a little bit in Bad Buddy, where it's like it's like it's not too much about their sexuality. It's just like, oh, you like a boy. Oh, you like a girl. Like, cool, whatever. We're moving past it. Like that. It's moments like that like are rainbows and butterflies sometimes about BLs that you're like, oh, yes, I love that this
You're
is
like,
the,
wouldn't
like,
it be nice if this didn't have to be a discussion? If we could all just be
totally.
cool.
Be cool,
If
people.
we could all just be cool.
Impossible.
Impossible.
That's why we have BL.
Yeah, clearly.
Okay. The volleyball game.
Okay, volleyball game. So we've got cute manager. I actually have a lot of problems with this dynamic.
That introduces the like unnecessary manager has crush on coach.
Yes, this cute like volleyball manager girl.
The coach is the nicest human.
No, he's a great guy. He's the polar opposite of like horrible homophobic teacher.
Yes.
And so this cute girl is there, and the whole volleyball team is like, "Oh my god! Like she has a present. Is it for me?
Right.
Like who's she
There's
gonna
like
give it to?"
rumor from the other school that's like the girl Toyota's girlfriend goes to the other school, and there's rumor that she likes somebody on the opposing team, and she has a gift for them.
And they're all just like drooling over this
so
girl.
wholesome when you don't know.
She is very cute, to be fair.
Cute. Yeah.
And like one part I do like about it is like I just relate to this so much. Aoki goes and he like hides in the rafters and he has these not binoculars. He doesn't use his phone to zoom in. No, he has opera glasses.
It's very like a Fiat and Don't Say No situation.
But it's the opera glasses for me.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was when he whips out those opera glasses, they're like on a little stick and they're like bronze. I was just like, what? But so he's watching her because he's like, I know she likes Ida. She's like, he's so perfect. Of course she likes Ida. Right? Like, I know she, and he's like, and he's so concerned because he's like, she's gonna like make him fall for her. And like, I know it, you know. And so you're watching this all play out. And she goes up to the coach and she like says something to him. And then the coach like turns to the players and is like, okay, like time to play the game. And they're like, wait. But who does she like?
Who's she giving the gift to?
Again, relatable. It's like, but how you know? Like, it's like one of those like Bam Bam moments for sure.
Yeah.
And the teacher is like, oh, she asked if she could give the gift to someone, but I said she should do it privately. Right? Like she shouldn't do it in front of all you guys. And they're like, oh, okay. And so later on, you see her, she presents the gift to Ida.
Yeah.
And what you don't know at the time is that Aoki's hiding in the room.
Yeah.
Which is perfect.
Yeah.
I love him so much. And she's having this conversation with him, and he's like, she gives him the shoe bag, and it's all very, you know, and he returns the shoe back to her, and he's like, I know this isn't for me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I have a crush on you. Yeah. Like, you're so nice, whatever, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, girl, I've been watching you. Yeah. He's like, I see you. I see your game. He's like, you have a crush on the teacher.
Yeah.
And in this moment, I was like, oh no.
Which is like typical, just like character trait where he has everybody else figured out, but doesn't have his own thing figured out.
So true. And in this moment, I was like, oh God, no. And she's like, well,
yeah. I remember when we were watching this and we were like, hold up, wait, what?
We were like, no.
Please.
This a similar, not in the same type, but like there's another very much like no situation going on with Paint with Love right now that we both are like, I can't decide if this should make me uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the same thing with like in Eclipse, the new GMMTV show, where you're like, is there gonna be a teacher-student situation? We're not doing this.
But so she's like, she's like, okay, fine, you have me figured out. And she tells the story about how she like fell for the teacher, and it's like she gets hit with a volleyball, and in her brain, she's like, oh, he was so romantic and he saved me. And as this teacher, he's like, I'm sure. He's like, oh crap, a kid just got hit in the head.
Yeah.
And so but what's weird about it is she's like, I decided if after I give him this gift, he doesn't accept it, I'm just going to give up, which implies that she's been actively pursuing him. And I'm just like, I don't love, and the way they're having a conversation about it is as though it's perfectly normal. And I'm like, this is not, no. Anyways, he gives her the bag back, and then he walks over and moves the board, and Aoki's sitting there.
So cute.
And it leads to in my opinion, the cutest Aoki moment in the show.
Yeah,
I think each character has their own cutest moment.
Yeah.
But the cutest Aoki moment in the show is when he kind of gets caught and he pulls the strings on his hoodie
Oh my God, I love that
and
moment.
covers his face.
It's so
Oh my
stinking cute.
God. So cute.
The experience that we've had in BL world with hoodies has been like a whole thing.
The hoodies are impeccable. The hoodies are impeccable.
Yeah, Aoki's whole personality is truly just like so sweet. But it's not like naive, I don't think.
He's just like a nice person, and there are not enough nice people in the world. Like, he very much, if he doesn't like the way that somebody's doing something, or if he, like, even this manager girl we were just talking about, he's never mean to someone. He never has to voice his rude opinion to anyone.
Yeah. I also really just love the dynamic between the friends that like really know these boys, like Toyota and Aida, just like their friendship as like two male characters. Like when Toyota and the friends find out about Aoki and Aida, they're like, we want to celebrate you guys because the like wholesomest of wholesome moments when they're like, we wanted to pass you the ball as to show Aoki that like we were okay with you guys being together because Aoki was so distraught that like they would have issue.
Right. He came to, so this is after they've broken up, essentially. They decided that like they shouldn't date.
Yeah. Aoki has decided because he's like, you can't be ruined.
Right.
Like, I feel like is what he said.
What's interesting is that Aoki kind of has this falter when you expect it to be from Ida.
Yeah.
Because Ida has had all this character development, and then Aoki gets mad actually because Ida's like, oh, well, I told my team we're dating.
Yeah.
And Aoki's like, oh my God, why would you do that? You can't do that. And they get in this huge fight, and then they break up. So patent brand of them. And everything comes back to Bad Buddy now.
It does.
And they break up over it. And I mean, essentially break up. Like, you know, they decide that the dating, whatever. And so Aoki, because he's so concerned, again, this just comes down to Aoki is just a nice person.
Yeah.
And there are not enough nice people in this world that like can't help themselves to being mean to people for no reason.
Yeah.
But he goes to the volleyball team and he's like, please, please, please. He's like, don't treat Ida differently. He's like, I'm the one that I had a crush on him.
I coerced him.
And I coerced him into dating me. And he's like, please, 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 just like be nice to him. And that's when the volleyball team is like, we need to show him that this is okay, that like he doesn't need to be afraid.
Right, we were going to throw a celebration for you guys.
It's so sweet.
Oh, it's so sweet. And
it's
then,
so
like,
sweet.
And the friend, when like Ida is like, oh yeah, we weren't actually dating, and the friend is like, I've never seen you lie before, and you just lied, like you were fully dating this boy.
Yeah. But so speaking of the friends, let's talk about Aida.
Yeah.
Right? Aida. Aida. Let's talk about Aida because he was a roller coaster of a character for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I love this boy. He's adorable. And then I was like, why is he being so rude to Hashimoto?
Yes.
I was like, she's perfect and I love her.
Yeah. I didn't love him in relation to her. I liked him in relation to Aoki.
I had a very roller coaster relationship with him because I was like, he's adorable. He's a fun friend for Aoki.
Fun friend.
And then we get into the dynamic with Hashimoto, and I was like, I don't like this. Why are you being mean to her?
Yeah.
And then he's like, can't remember why he's being mean to her.
Right.
And then he like kind of tries to gaslight her a little bit. He's like, that never happened.
Yes. Right, because he like can't remember their like first meeting or something.
Well, he just remembers he had a bad first impression of her.
Right.
And I was like, how can you not like somebody but you don't even remember why you don't like them?
Didn't she like make him cupcakes or something?
So, okay. Let me because I really like Hashimoto and Aida.
Yeah.
Like how they ended up.
Yeah.
Didn't love the way they got there, but I like how they ended up. Because they're
very Bad Buddy. Didn't like how they got there, but you know.
I don't know. I do like how Bad Buddy got there.
Yeah,
I mean, I like everything about Ompua.
Yeah.
So yeah. There's nothing that man could do.
True.
So their first day of school, they
Yeah.
have these like exams, these like entrance exams.
Yeah.
And she's rushing to school and she forgets something. I can't remember if it's a pen or
it's
or
the
her
like
ID.
yeah, it's like her
the
ID
Scantron.
her ID to get into the test.
Right. So she can't get into
Her
the
ticket.
test.
Her ticket.
Yes. So she can't get into the test.
Which schools in other countries blow my mind.
Well, you have to have a ticket to take the SAT. How long has it been since you took the SAT, Beth Ann?
Yeah, but isn't it to get into high school? Because aren't they in high school?
Yes. I mean, it's just a different time.
Right.
Period,
That's what I'm
but
talking about.
It's the same as like taking
New York
an SAT.
New York City is the same way. Like you have to apply to high schools in New York City.
Some high schools. I actually work in this realm,
Which is
so I actually know
crazy.
all the ins and outs.
Which is
If anybody has
wild.
questions about schools, no, I'm just kidding.
Anyways, continue. She forgets her ticket. They run into each other.
Right. So
and he's like,
he
it's
helps
okay.
her,
yeah.
Right. He helps her. He makes it so she can do the thing she needs to do.
Yeah.
And she's been in love with him ever since because he is her white knight. He is her, like, he has saved her. And so she's like has been working up the courage to like show him that she likes him.
Right.
And so actually the reason that Aoki originally has a crush on Hashimoto is because she's made this cupcake on Valentine's Day for Aida. And she can't work up the courage to give it to him, so she gives it to Aoki instead. And that's the moment when he decides he likes her.
Right.
So that's where the cupcakes come into play. And but on Aida's side, he doesn't remember this like ticket situation.
Yeah.
What he remembers is that at one point he like made a joke to her and like such a boy. And she like doesn't laugh or doesn't play along or she's just like not cordial about it.
Yeah.
And he is highly offended.
I mean,
and he decides he doesn't like her. And so when he like explains this to her, after they kind of, which I love her reaction to him kind of being a jerk to her is she smacks him in the face.
Yes.
My girl.
So good.
And then she's like, but I'm not going to go. She's like smacks him in the face and kind of like gives him a tongue lashing a little bit. But then she's like, I'm going to make him like me.
I love it.
Which is just like, I love her. I love her so much.
It's so good.
And so after he finally remembers like why it is he has this negative connotation of her, he tells her and she's like, oh, no. It's not that I didn't think your joke wasn't funny or like whatever situation it was.
Yeah.
She's like, I just liked you so much as I was like scared of you. I was like intimidated by you because I liked you so much, which I've been there. Like I have very publicly been there. In fact, like if you're listening to this podcast, you literally watched me be there. Not going to tell you who, you know. Just like think back to the person that everybody now thinks I don't actually like. The reason is this reason.
I think we've all had those experiences where we're just like overthinking our interaction with this person that like we like so much that like, I know I like will not acknowledge the person that I like just because like, you know, I don't want them to acknowledge my existence.
Well, and it's like I didn't want to mess it up and I didn't want to say the wrong thing. And I was just like, and so I so related to this moment, probably because it was so fresh for me, that I was like, I have literally, as an adult human, literally been in this position 3 weeks ago or however long ago it was.
It's so good.
And like, and she's like, oh, and she explains to him and he's like, that makes a lot of sense. And he's like, the reason it hurt my feelings is because I like had wanted to be friends with you. And she's like, but we have no problem here because the reason I didn't laugh is because I liked you so much. And he's like, oh, and she's like, oh, and she's like, so now I'm not going to give up. And he's like, I still don't want to date you. And I was like, Aida.
I know. I hate the part where he's like, I can't imagine what it would be like to date you. Like,
I'm like, Aida.
You're like, then date each other and see what it's like.
I was like, you literally just said you like her. Like you literally just said this.
Such a straight boy.
Oh, such a boy. And so then she like gets in her head that like she's going to make him like her.
Yeah.
And she decides, okay, this haircut situation that comes into play.
Oh my God.
The pompadour.
So freaking funny.
First of all, it's hilarious because we just watched this and then Cow's new music video came out where he has this pompadour situation. And so there's this whole conversation where she's like, he reads these mangas where one of the boys has a pompadour, and so I'm gonna get a pompadour
Or shave her head.
or shave my head.
Because in true girl fashion, when there's some boy drama, you cut your hair.
Right, of course.
That's what you do.
And all her friends are like, don't do that.
No.
Like, literally, you see Aoki freaking out, and he begs with Aida. He's like, please, can you just tell her, like, not, like, please.
Yeah.
And Aida's like, she won't actually do it. Which,
Yeah.
again, I was so annoyed with him. I was like, you need to take how much she likes you seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and in true, like, Ida and Aoki fashion, right? Where Toyota had to have that conversation with him.
Yeah.
I was like, Aida, you need to take how much she likes you seriously. But then it, like, cuts over to all her friends, like her girlfriends that you don't really get to meet in the show.
Right.
And they're basically pleading with her. They're like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And so she goes to do it, and Aoki and Aida show up.
Yeah.
And it's so nice that he shows up because you're like, oh, okay, he does care. And he's just being such a boy that he, like, can't admit it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and so they're waiting for her, and she comes out, and she has not gotten the pompadour. She's just gotten, like, a very cute trim.
Yeah.
And that's when you see, like, a turn in Hashimoto and Aida's relationship where, like, he's kind of, like, egging her on to like him because he has this whole plan for Christmas, and there are Christmas lights in this show, which make it even more pure. So and I just love the moment where he has told her, he picked out a recipe in her cookbook because she famously is in the home economics club.
Yes.
And he draws this little, like, thing on it, like, make these for me.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I love them bringing up home economics again, because I've had this conversation a couple of times with people that, like, I was in home economics in middle school. It's where you learn the difference between wet and dry measuring, which is not a thing that a lot of people know. But, like, home economics, we got to bring that back. Like, those are important life skills. Like,
okay, calm down, Grandma.
I'm just saying.
That's what we have YouTube for now.
Yes, but people don't know these things. Learn the difference between dry and wet measuring. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Grandma, let's get you to bed.
Anyway,
so she's gonna make him these cupcakes that he's picked out.
Right.
And it's this whole thing at the home ec club, and, like, Aoki comes and gets to, like, play with the home ec class, and it's very fun.
Yeah.
And so on the day of the Christmas party, somebody else, like, hands out a homemade, like, treat
thing. Yeah. Because there's some type of, like, thing that if you give a boy your treat and they eat it, like, you're destined to be together or something.
I guess. I don't know.
Because that's how she ends up with the guy that, like, goes and, like, shoves the food in her mouth.
So somebody else is, like, handing out this homemade treat, and he's like, oh, I don't like homemade.
Yes.
And Hashimoto, in true Hashimoto fashion,
she goes through it.
She freaks out, which this is exactly why Hashimoto and Aoki are friends.
Oh, for
Truly.
sure.
Because she loses it in that moment.
If they had been in a relationship together?
No, it would be a train wreck. But again, like, this was me, right?
Yeah.
Like, this whole, like, truly, if I had been in her shoes and I watched a boy that I liked who actively was flirting with me and told me he wanted me to make these cupcakes,
right,
and then I hear him say, like, I don't like anything that's homemade,
right,
I would freak out.
Right.
Which she does. She freaks out.
He was just trying to be nice to the girl and turn her down.
Right. And so later on, they go outside, and she's like, and again, she yells at him, which actually I do love, because she basically is calling him out in that moment for being like, why were you flirting with me? Like, you need to take me more seriously, and, like, don't flirt with me if you don't mean it. She's like, you drew on the page in my book, which I wish more girls had the, like, courage to stand up for themselves and be like, don't try and gaslight me into thinking that, like, I'm crazy for thinking something's going on.
Totally.
Because, like, and just timid people in general, right? Yeah. So many times you back down. And it actually is the same thing, to bring it back around to, like, the Thai BLs in Theory of Love with Third and Kai. Yeah. Is like, if Third had just been like, don't try and gaslight me into thinking that I'm crazy for thinking something's going on here. Yeah. Right? Like, so Hashimoto does this with Aida, and he's like, I need you to calm down. Which, again, I've been there. I need you to calm down.
She's like, let me go buy something, because you obviously want something from the store, not homemade.
She's pissed. And he's like, I need you to calm down. He's like, the reason I didn't take it is because the only homemade thing I wanted was yours.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
And then the lights come on and they live happily ever
The
after.
Christmas lights come on. And all this time, by the way, Aoki and Aida are still broken up. So we get this sweet, fluffy storyline, but also like our boys are not together. And it's very like.
But Toyota's about
sad.
to have a very good come to Jesus.
Yes.
With Ida. And they're going to have like a moment. And the whole team is going to be like, you need to go be with your boy.
And it's like a run. And he like in true like dramatic fashion, like
the To My Star run across the town.
He runs across town and he gets there and the Christmas lights are off. They're not on anymore. Yeah. And he gets there and he's sad, right? Ida is sad because he doesn't see Aoki anywhere and he thinks he missed his chance. And then Aoki's behind him and he's like, Ida?
Yeah.
And then they have their little conversation and they cherry magic it out with a hug. And then our new favorite couple, Hashimoto and Aida, turn the lights back on for them. And it's so cute. And it's sugar-coated sugar. Yeah. And it's exactly what you need if you don't want to be sad that there's no more Bad Buddy.
I honestly, 100%. I would love a season 2 just because I love these characters and would love to see them navigate an actual relationship.
I want them like in college.
I'd like them in the last year of college going into adulthood.
Yeah. I like how in Love Life on the Line you get to see the seasons of their life. Yeah. I want the middle season. I want the college season.
Yeah. I would just love to see these two characters navigate an adult relationship and just to see how they deal with like making new friends in college and like being maybe like studying abroad or like, those things that you have to communicate but also deal with in like your very like unique personality ways. And they have two very separate personalities, two very opposite personalities really. But I will say I really loved the moment that Ida kind of started to be more fun and playful and like smiled. He's like
Ida. Yeah, so it would be interesting to see season 2 to see if they like even each other out, right? Yeah. Like, does Aoki become less dramatic? Truly, I hope not.
No.
I hope he's exactly the same.
Calm down a little bit.
No, I hope he's exactly the same.
So good.
But yeah, I mean, again, if you are sad because there's no more Bad Buddy, like I am sad that there's no more Pat and Fran in my life. Fluff, sugar-coated sugar, fluffy fluffness.
Yeah.
Maybe go watch the Enchante music video too. Watch Tay get showered in rose petals while singing Enchante. Just like we all need some happiness in our lives right now. And
there's actually some good Korean dramas on Viki right now and like 10 more coming out in February. So I'm looking forward to all the Korean shows that are coming out. We had lots of good suggestions for Series Sunday.
We did.
So I'm really excited to talk new stuff. We're going to talk some old stuff.
Like we had a lot of oldie suggestions.
Which is so fun. Y'all, there's so many BLs and it's so fun that like you guys want to hear us talk about these BLs.
So we did, and we're going to do this. I just don't know when. I don't know. I'm not going to say it because I think I know what the schedule is, but I could be wrong. We had a lot of old ones suggested, one of which is Sodas, which, by the way, I have been trying to get us to do Sodas since last season. Just like I had been trying to get us to do Dark Blue Kiss since last season, and I finally got it. So, like, my dream is going to come true.
Season 1 was hard because, like, we're still figuring this out and to figure out, like, exactly what people would want to hear us talk about and what we'd want to talk about.
Season 2 is hard. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, totally.
Everything's hard.
And that's the thing with BLs in general is that, like, the conversation changes so much, but then again, you go back to the like good old.
I mean, the comfort shows.
Yes,
the comfort.
Can you imagine like a year or two from now when like Bad Buddy is like
a comfort show?
But I mean, it already is a comfort show. Like I will fully replay 3 of 4 and 4 of 4 of episode 12 just because like those are just like.
I rewatch episode 5, 4 of 4 like a lot, like a lot.
But like. I
love an Ompawat monologue.
It's so good. We also rewatched another show that we were like, oh my God, this is so good. So yeah, we have much more in store for this season. Again, you guys know about the merch. Go get your merch.
If you want to.
There's some pink stuff, there's some blue stuff. We still need to add some of those taglines. If you have any suggestions, we love to hear them. Again, DM us. We are on socials all day doing all the things. There was so much going on social media today. On today that we're recording it. Sorry.
The day we're recording.
Not
Sunday.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, there's so much more in store. Stay tuned.
Yeah, so this has been Let's Talk BL. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and keep up with all things Let's Talk BL at Let's Talk BL.
Bye.